This video is brought to you in association with Dubby Energy Blend. Use the coupon code GINGERMediaLimited to get 10% off your next purchase. Link in the description.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Raw is Ginger.
Well, welcome back, everybody, to the next episode of Raw is Ginger. Joining me tonight, as usual, is John Toner and Andrew Durnan. Guys, how are we?
All right.
I think it's the first time that I'm actually not feeling like anything is in pain. Well, since because I was doing the editing in some of the episodes, and it just seems to be like a phase where there's always something wrong with us. I think it's from about like the DDP Goldberg match onwards. There's something that's wrong with everybody.
Pretty much.
Yeah. Speaking of which, Toner, how are you, boss? We've got to keep this going.
It's as was.
Mm.
This isn't the most uncomfortable day I've had, so that in itself is promising.
Yeah, that's always good. So no word about operation date yet?
Well, there was, and then it got pulled at the last minute.
That happened to Alison because she's meant to be getting two teeth taken out. They're both wisdom teeth. And she's meant to be going in and getting knocked out for it. Well, like not completely, like that kind of, it's like conscious sedation they call it now or something like that. And they had a free appointment for her on Friday, and she couldn't do it because the work wouldn't give her time off in such short notice, and she was raging because she had like the following week off to what, she was like, that would have been perfect. I could have had that and then could have recovered.
Why can't you knock them out for her? Pretty sure there's many occasions where you felt it.
There's many occasions, but this is going to be this will be in the podcast title. My fist doesn't go that far.
Well, just so everybody knows, mine's fucking does.
But the second I thought it, I'm like, that'll be very inappropriate to the point of Toner inappropriate. And it'll probably go in the title. But since we are on this route, there's something that Kev and I have been itching to ask you lately. It's about a certain wrestler that you don't like that is getting inducted into a certain
fucking raging. I sat watching the fucking wrestling. This comes up because I'll normally record Raw SmackDown, but I happened to be watching it live that night because I couldn't sleep, and I put it off.
That's an improvement for you though, because normally if something like that happened, your foot would be through the TV.
I know, but I put it off, right? And then I sat here fucking fuming, then going over how much of a shit show I think the thing is, and how it's a fucking disgrace, and how it's a sympathy vote, and how, I mean, for fuck's sake, that's just a sympathy vote. Let's give the wee dwarfy, shitey fucking wrestler fucking an induction into the Hall of Fame just for the fucking clicks. Do you know what I mean? Fucking prick.
Oh man! Well, by the time this recording goes out, WrestleMania should be past. It'll come and gone. So, it'll be a welcome anger for the recent ones.
I mean, I'm not a big fan of Dominic Mysterio either. However, in all my years of watching it, I have never, in my life of watching it, wanted to see a son stamping his father's face so much in life.
I know your past history, but especially with your dad. I'm sure there must have been a couple of times that you thought that was going to be the case.
Not to this severity.
That's actually impressive.
The amount of money I would pay for the boot of the man who splattered his face is unbelievable.
Oh man, it's only you. It's only you that would say it. There's lots of people that would think it, but there's only you that would say it.
It gets cheered like fuck. Why? Why? I don't get it. I know this isn't even the fucking topic of it, and this
is what we do. Carry on.
No, I wouldn't even give this time of a fucking full podcast on its own, and it'd be named in its own, because if we ever do a podcast and does Rey Mysterio deserve this, I am fucking out. Right? I'm not giving that prick the time of that. But why do people like him? Why? What is so fucking great about him? I mean,
I can imagine what if we get to the point we've got a good comment section. I want people to comment on this and be like, right, what do you guys think of Rey Mysterio? Do you think like Toner? Do you not? If so, why? And then just give you a run of admin for like 24 hours and then we'll be cancelled.
I mean, and very quickly, I can understand him kicking about cruiserweight, right, and doing relatively okay at it. But I mean, for fucking some of the people that he's beat, and not only beat, but fucking dismantled, and sometimes fuck off, man, fuck
Oh, well.
off, prick.
Well, right. So I've got to find out if this before we get into this because it technically will tie in, right? Because you seem to have like an ableist attitude. You know, Rey Mysterio's small. Fuck off. He can't beat people. Well, we're going to be talking about like a relatively pint-sized wrestler that did make a very big mark on the industry. But before that, I want to ask you about Zach Gowen, the one-legged wonder.
I mean, good for a pogo stick, and that's it.
There we go. There we go. So I take it you were the one that was absolutely cheering when he got destroyed by Brock Lesnar.
Vigorously
in front of his mall.
Yes.
In front of his mall.
I was actually watching a documentary about him, about Zach Gowen. The only reason that they signed him was because TNA were looking at him. And so they beat him to the punch. And then it turned out they signed the wrong guy, which made Zach actually ask, where the fuck is this other one-legged wrestler? And can I meet him? Like, because apparently they just said, sign the one-legged boy. And it was the wrong one. And in the same like thing, like, you know, the segment where Brock Lesnar infamously pushed him down the stairs in the wheelchair. Sadly, we all know that was a stuntman. But just before they were about to do that, Vince said, you know, you can take the bump if you want. And he just went, fuck off.
Real man
like,
would have took the bump.
Yeah. But in fairness, like when flying downstairs in a wheelchair, it could have been interesting. I do feel bad for the guy because he had a lot of demons afterwards that he had to wrestle with. He got treated like absolute shit in the locker room, kind of like similar to WCW, like the Alliance Invasion kind of ones. So I do feel bad for that, but it's good to see he's cleaned himself up and he's working away. So fair play.
Still got one leg.
Well, it doesn't grow back, does it?
Grow back.
I don't know, does it?
I don't know.
He grew a third plan as well.
Weirder things have happened in wrestling than just a guy's leg. Fuck it. I mean, Vince McMahon come back for the dead. Shawn Michaels wrestled with God.
That's true.
You know, his leg growing back.
Mae Young.
Giving birth to the hand with Mark Henry. That was so creepy.
Oh man.
That has got to be, I would say, top 5 weirdest wanks.
See, when you're about to say top 5 weirdest, I was hoping it was top 5 weirdest wrestling angles, and I thought, oh, we could do that. But
all right, okay. Sorry, for the purposes of edit, that has to have been in my
no, it's staying in.
Weirdest wrestling angles.
It's staying in. Sorry. That's just the way it goes. If we're gonna get cancelled, we'll get cancelled with style.
May as well.
Yeah. So since we were linking it into, you know, smaller guys that have made a big impact. Obviously, one of them was questionable, but we want to talk about a certain Sean Waltman, aka X-Pac, aka the 1-2-3 Kid, and his match with Bret Hart on Raw of, was it 1994, I believe?
Yep.
Fucking hope so. That's the match I watched.
Yeah, for the World Heavyweight title. And this was actually the only match that they wrestled on TV, from what I read. Because from like Sean and Brett, like both doing interviews respectively, had said, you know, if we had been given an angle to work with, I wonder what we could have done, because everybody raves about this match, and rightfully so, as a technical masterclass. But that's something that I do want to ask you though, because we got the one and done. And it's lived in infamy. And everybody's like, oh, we should have had more. But I think because it hasn't had any more, that's why it's living in infamy.
Yeah,
would you guys agree
100%.
with that?
Yeah.
100%. You can get too much of something.
Well, Brock and Roman have definitely brought that home.
I mean, how many times have they had matches and you're going, oh, it's going to be the same thing. They'll go in, shite happens, and then the show's finished. And nobody cares who have won.
At the time of this recording, the last match they've had, where he came out in a tractor and tipped the ring, in fairness, I thought that was all right. I was like, okay, stop there.
Well, it's a bit different.
I think it was all right because they'd done everything fucking else. That it was like, oh, that was unexpected.
Yeah, that's why I was thinking stop there, because it was something that wasn't expected. Well, it was an interesting match as well. And yeah, I personally thought stop there. But yeah, right, we can't have too much of a good thing. But so aside from Roman and Brock, who do you think has been the too much of a good thing?
I think some of Mankind and Taker. I think there's, as I'm sure we can agree, some absolute get down in history forever matches.
Yeah. Well, the first episode we talked about was that go down in history match.
But then they throw them together in different circumstances and different situations that you begin to think, it's not going to live up to that.
Yeah.
Leave us with that.
It was something like 2 years that they were like having a feud on and off. That like Undertaker would go off a feud with somebody else, but then they'd bring Mankind into it. Mankind was having a feud with somebody, Undertaker would come into it, and it was like for 2 years near enough. In like the late 90s, these two were always ending up together. And I think that's just because Vince didn't know who to put them with anymore.
Yeah.
And the matches were, going over because people were like, we don't know who to cheer for. We love them both. And it's like, we're trying to split the crowd so that we can see who's going to be the bad guy and who's going to be the good guy. But it never happened when they two were fighting. Even when Mankind was like with Paul Bearer and Undertaker was supposed to be the good guy, and it's like they were cheering for both of them and they couldn't get them to split.
That's true. What about you, Kev? Who do you think was maybe like too much of a good thing?
This is going to be a bit controversial, even though I liked the WrestleMania matches. Austin and The Rock.
I was thinking that as well, actually.
I mean, the matches at WrestleMania, especially this WrestleMania 17 match, I mean, that match was fantastic.
Yeah.
No matter what you think of how it ended, there's, days we could talk about that, but
there will be one day when we talk about it all. Don't worry.
It's like they had to have another two WrestleMania matches to get The Rock a win.
That's true. Well, and even at that point, like Stone Cold wasn't at his peak.
He wasn't at all.
He was back when physical demons, mental demons. He wasn't in the right space. I think it would have been interesting. That time it's recording WrestleMania 38 when Austin came back. I think him at that point was really, really good. He was really strong with Kevin Owens. I know what your feelings are on Kevin Owens, like, don't worry, but irrespective of that, do you think that Stone Cold from WrestleMania 38 and throwing in maybe like a that Dwayne Johnson, do you think those two having a match might have been like maybe a wee redeemer, or do you think maybe it was better that we stuck with Kevin Owens regardless of what you think of Kevin Owens?
I think if it was to have been The Rock and Austin again, it would have been more for the nostalgia purposes than absolutely anything else. I mean, we're all pretty sure The Rock could still go a turn in the ring. Austin, we were unsure of. That proved that, in my opinion, he could still go in the ring. Okay, maybe not to the levels that he'd done before, but who imagines that he's going to, because it's been a long time. Father Time catches up with everybody.
Yeah.
But I think that he definitely showed a maturity in the work that he'd done in the ring, and the kind of physical level that he was at. I think it was right to have it with an Owens type figure, because as great as Austin done, you needed like a Kevin Owens, like a Seth Rollins, for example, somebody that can carry a whack of that match. If you go in against The Rock's got that many filming commitments and everything else that always be getting him back. The worries are filming commitments, injuries, because it's happened before where he's come back, been injured, delayed filming and stuff.
Yeah.
All these insurances. So I don't think you get a great match. And again, as we just spoke about, you can have too much of a good thing. I agree there was too much in episodes of Raw, SmackDown, Heat, all the rest of it, them two going toe to toe. And that, I think, would have been another example of that.
What about anybody that was paired with Hulk Hogan? Because that was always just too, I think that was just always too much of Hogan.
Yeah, anything involving Hogan.
I think the same way Goldberg.
Yeah.
And especially, I would say, in the kind of, when after he come back against The Rock.
Yeah.
Especially after that, I mean, before it, yes, but especially after that, it's like, especially over the most recent years, it's up. There he comes back up. You're last, so hopefully that's the fucking end of that. Up, no, there we go. Grandpa's wanting another fucking fight. Somebody tell him to sit down and stay in that fucking home, will you?
And in fairness, like there was one that, and this will be a controversial one because you know that this is my favorite wrestler, but I think Chris Jericho and Chris Benoit was an overplayed, like kind of too much of a good thing. They were great in the ring, they had great chemistry, so I understand why. But I think that was what there was points where it just had to stop. Well, it felt like every second week at one point it was just like Chris Jericho and Chris Benoit, but something, or they were going to pair them up as the odd couple tag team, and then there'd be tension and rivalry, and then they'd fight each other. And I was just like, guys, like enough. I get it. These are both Canadians. That's all we need to know. What, and you can both kick ass. But the reason I actually did bring up Chris Benoit because it does bring me back to talking about Sean Waltman. When he started out, he went to New Japan, and he was actually with the likes of Chris Benoit and Eddie Guerrero plying his craft over there. And then he came over to WWF, and in a move that no one would have really saw coming, or maybe did see coming in a sense, he got his ass kicked by Doink the Clown.
Yeah.
And everybody thought, that's him, he's buried. No, he was buried. He got beat by Doink the Clown, which, in fairness, we would all think. But the point is, the thing that nobody saw coming was the Razor Ramon stuff. Now, what did you guys think of that angle? Do you think that was something that just really, it couldn't have been played any better? Or do you think maybe there could have been a better angle to kind of go down with it?
I think putting him with Scott Hall was really good at that time because height-wise, there wasn't much of a difference. I mean, Sean Waltman's like 6'3" or something, really tall, but he's built like that when he started. And then you get somebody like Scott Hall, and it's like built like a tank. Right. Razor Ramon's going to throw him about, chuck him out the ring, and then just walk away. And then all of a sudden, he's get beat, and it's like, what? I remember watching this. I was like 10, and it's like, how did he just beat him?
Yeah.
It's like, I want to see marry him. I want to see him beat other people.
Yeah. And it was something it was an organic, kind of gravitating towards him, which is something that obviously later on McMahon absolutely hated. He hated people that were actually getting over with the crowd rather than the people he wanted to get over, to the point where people were shouting 1, 2, 3 in the crowd, and thus that's how his moniker was born, because he was known as different things like the Lightning Kid before that. And then that led into, a thing with Ted DiBiase, as well, saying that he was going to do what Scott Hall couldn't do, and that was beat the 1, 2, 3 kid. And then he didn't do it. And I thought that was just, I thought if there's ever two people that could put you over at that time, it was, Scott Hall or Ted DiBiase. So do you think that was maybe Do you think it was planned, or do you think it just was organic? Because that's why everybody thinks it was an organic thing that people went for it and they just went, okay, let's run with it. But do you think there was something there? Because having that win against Scott Hall, that had to be planned.
No, it was totally planned because Scott Hall had went to Vince and said, "Look, this kid's a great wrestler. You need to sign him. I'll work with him because I know you don't like bringing in people that don't look built like a tank. Bring him in, give him a couple of losses here and there, and then he can beat me, and then I'll do a run with him." And then Vince is like, "But that means you won't be in the title running for, what, 6 to 8 months?" He's like, "That's fine." And it's because he'd seen his work in Japan. And he's like, "Look, this guy's great." And it was him that got him an audition to come in and do it was one of the Saturday night challenge things that he got him in on. And he's like, "See, he can work." And then, so it was completely Scott Hall that got him in.
I know. And it went from Sean Waltman being the guy who was someone that he would try and get people for enhancement talent to becoming the guy that assessed enhancement talent to see if they could get to the next level. So it showed you the respect that he earned through that. And he got eventually his 1-2-3 streak, because he did have a wee unbeaten streak and it got beat by some fucker that I cannot remember. And yeah, that's just saying something about it, how it was at the time. But then we get to 1994, and essentially there's an open challenge for Bret's title. And it's the 1-2-3 kid that picks up this challenge. And again, like everybody, we're all thinking it's going to be a squash match. And we were going to think, right, Bret's just going to toss him about, kick the crap out of him, sharpshooter, submit, done. And it was interesting because they were both going in as baby faces. And we all know from watching wrestling that baby faces don't usually stay baby faces by the end of a match. There's usually as a heel by the end. WrestleMania 17 was the prime example with Austin and The Rock. But by the end of this match, they still both stayed baby faces. Do you think that was the right call?
Yeah.
Yeah, to be honest as well, though, I think one of the things that's so underutilized now, but maybe not as underutilized back then, was you can get over in a match with a crowd and everything else without winning the match. That, and that in essence for me was a massive part of what he done. Yes, he was over to a point, but in what this match became and what they'd done in this match, he got over even further without actually winning it. I think it was a really kind of genius way to work it.
Yeah. And some of Hart's selling as well was solid during that match. Like the infamous one where Waltman does the takedown, and Hart's kind of took it back, but he also gives it that kind of, all right, game on, kid. Like kind of I acknowledge what you did. Now I'm going to kick the crap out of you. And there's a few high flying spots in it, which wasn't very common at the time for the WWF. And it looked like it was going to go down that kind of heel turn. They got the 1-2-3. What was it? Waltman's foot in the rope or something like that. There was something anyway. And Hart came back and he said, "No, this isn't the way that I win matches." Restart the match. Hebner's like, "You did win. I'm still counting it as a win. You can do it." It was the 1-2-3. It was done. And he's like, "Nope, just restart the match. Let's get back to it."
How often does matches get restarted?
Not very.
I mean, I can probably count on one hand how many have actually restarted.
Yeah, you can count more how many were stopped by Vince McMahon.
Yeah,
I mean, I can instantly think of two that were stopped by Vince McMahon. Well, the infamous one with Rhino and Tajiri, where he just went down and said, "Get the hell out of my ring." And then the one that was stopped to restart when Vince blew out his quads.
Just sitting there like that.
Yep. He's like, "You did this to me. You did this to me." I'm like, nah, like they could have just what that would be an interesting one to talk about. If do you think that was the right call of restarting it and going with the original plan? Because the way it was done, they could have built another unique angle like they did, ironically, with Bret Hart. So that could be another topic for another day. But when it gets to like the kind of the tail end of it, you can just tell that it's been a grueling match. Like Sean Waltman himself looks absolutely fucked. Like this is essentially like the prototype of Taker Hardy 2002, dead on his feet. But he's still like, you haven't beat me. And
yeah,
I thought it was like, I don't think I'm giving it the credit and the justice that it's due. Like we would go into a bit more kind of in detail, but it's because I want people to go and watch it. I want people to try and find like even highlights or find any documentaries or commentaries about the match as well, because it was so good. But a lot of people say it's underrated. Yet when I was doing my research on it, there's a lot of stuff that talks about the match. So do you think it's now went from being underrated to maybe a tale of folklore?
It probably is, just because it's up there as one of the longest Raw matches in history. Yeah. Because it runs at like 25 minutes. If you try and find the show, it's only like 47 minutes because they were only like an hour and a half, and then you get adverts. So it only ran for like 47 minutes. 25 minutes of that's that match.
Yeah.
The rest of the other matches are like 3 to 5 minutes each. And it's like, I mean, a championship match at the start of the show just shows that, Raw was fairly new at the time. It was only like a year old. So they're like, we don't really know what people are wanting to see. Let's throw out a heavyweight championship match, first match. It's like, people are going to like, what? First match?
Yeah.
So it's like, it's the sheer shock value of that. It's like, how often's that happened? Unless Brock's involved and goes, no, I want my match first so I can get home. I want to go milk my coos.
Well, I was going to make a bad joke there, but I do not
want
Brock coming and kicking my ass.
Surprisingly not a metaphor.
No, he just wants to go back and milk his cows.
Yeah, that's why I was keeping my mouth shut on that one. I was like, nope, I ain't saying a word, because somehow Brock would find technology and come and kick our asses. Well, kick my ass. Anyway. Well, because I'm the front line of that one. But yeah, it was quite interesting having that, like, as the first match. Because
when you look at it as well, though, historically, is some of the time the reason that bigger matches have been put early on is because the crowd's raw at the time. The crowd are hyped up with all this energy, and it's a match they want them to get into. When you, at times, and this was something that I think Vince spoke about briefly, not about this match specifically, just in match scheduling in general, and it was about putting the right matches first because they wanted the crowd to get that, and you didn't want to get to the end of a show and feel like that crowd was zonked. And I think because, as Kev saying, it was so early on in Raw and kind of historically, they were still finding their feet with what is the best way to schedule this. If we put this on first, crowd are behind it, crowd are right into it, and then with latter matches, they begin to tail off because that energy and enthusiasm has kind of diminished slightly.
Yeah. Yeah, very true. Which does make me, because Kev brought it up with the Brock Lesnar one. And it was a case of that they both had to fight tooth and nail for Vince to go with that as the first match. Because Vince was like, nah, ain't going to be first match, but they were like, we need to go on first. to get the crowd going because it's going to be a long shift.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the right call. But the crowd were still dead on their feet by the end anyway.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. And what you're saying, like, Vince always looks at like the kind of psychology of what matches should go on first, but sometimes his psychology is fucked because he's had some stinkers on his first matches.
Yeah, but I suppose you look at it and it's the longest running TV show.
Yeah.
You're not going to hit the nail on the head every time.
It's true. I do agree with that.
Yeah, I mean, it's had its ups and downs, but, when it started, it didn't hit the ground running. It had so many ups and downs. It wasn't until like 95, 96 that it started to find its feet properly.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's when WCW were starting to do other things, and Vince they're keeping up on us.
Yeah.
So that's why they're like, look, we need to get a team in, and we need to just do this. And then that's when they started to get better quality stuff in.
Mm-hmm.
With the Monday Night Wars keeping up on them.
I know that's something that I feel is missing now. Well, I mean, don't get me wrong, AEW and TNA are technically the two rivals, but it doesn't feel like it's ever going to be like, like what it was back then. They'll be around, they'll carry on doing their content, they'll have a following. But do you guys even realistically see any of them matching again? TNA, they had a slight bit, and then it just dropped off a cliff with Bischoff, Hogan, Russo. AEW
that was sort of the death.
Yeah.
Really?
AEW was doing all right until, ironically, Rhodes jumped ship. So do you think that there is ever going to be a promotion that can rival them?
I think long term, you've got to imagine, yes, at some point, whether that be in the next 10, 20, 30 years or not, is obviously debatable. I think in the near future, no. And I think AEW has proven that they went with, at the beginning where it was kind of raw, there was, a lot of talent, were having a lot of say, kind of behind the scenes and stuff. And then it became a count of, we can bring in all these big names that were going through WWE, going through a cull at the time of releasing a lot of guys. We'll bring them in, we'll do this announcement, we'll bring them out, we'll get them involved in X, Y, Z. It'll be absolutely outstanding. But then you've got that many that storylines and anything else just gets lost in the midst. And for me, that's what's happened. They went away from kind of a lot more about action and wrestling and building something up to then being about how many of these names can we get on the screen at the one time? And the one show, how many of these names can come out? There's going to need to be, because a show's only so long, so many names that drop off that, don't get anything.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree with that. This video is brought to you in association with 7 Million Bikes Podcasts, providing a comprehensive step-by-step service as well as accessing a range of affiliate partnerships to provide you with discounts on your podcasting journey. For a free consultation, the link will be in the description of this video.
My opinion, Bret Hart, one of the most overrated wrestlers ever. And I think, however you want to call him, Sean, Expert, 123 Kid, actually very underrated in the sense of he was part of two of the most influential groups, influential factions that went on when you look at DX, NWO, and he was a big part of both of them at their heights.
Yeah.
I don't think it's probably he's given the kind of respect for that that's probably due, because when you think of DX or you think of NWO, he's not one of the first names that 90+% of people will throw to you when you ask about DX. Now, generally, you're looking at Triple H, Shawn Michaels.
Yeah.
When you look at NWO, Hogan, Hall, and Nash.
Yeah.
Are generally what you're going to get back. You forget how integral he was to both of those factions at their heights.
Yeah. And also,
Bret Hart kicked about, best there is, best there was, best there will be. Yeah, he was good technically, but ultimately, do I think that it kind of lasted well? It aged well? No.
I personally, I mean, in fairness, like this is the third episode that we've talked about Bret Hart, in terms of classic matches. So that's the only point against yours. But in fairness, I do agree with you on it. I do think Bret Hart is a bit overrated. And it's not just because of his wrestling. I just think he's a dour-faced bastard. I mean, the Montreal Screwjob happens, right? And he's pissed with Vince. Fair dues. And then he goes to WCW. He's pissed with Bischoff. He's pissed with Goldberg. Fair dues. But he's still riding the whole, Vince is an arsehole train. Sean is an arsehole train. Eventually, he comes back. They patch up. They patch up with Vince. They patch up with Sean. All done. And then he just goes. It's like, instead of it being right, I need to find someone. I need to just let this go and kind of move on in my life now. It's like I need to find someone else to shit on from a great height. He doesn't go after Bischoff. He doesn't go after Hogan or anything for WCW. He goes straight for Goldberg because of the kick heard round the world, like the one that he believes ruined his career, and he will bring it up constantly now. It's just like, at what point do you just acknowledge that you're just being a dour-faced git? And just what it happened, it's over, it's done. You weren't doing it in the WCW anyway.
People can talk about the Montreal Screwjob and how people talk about Montreal Screwjob and how bad it was and everything, blah blah blah. See, for Bret Hart, that's one of his biggest ever fucking cash cows.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So realistically, has he been at any disadvantage of that? At the time, you could argue it didn't look great on him and his reputation and stuff. Right, okay, but wouldn't have done anything for. I mean, if anything, all these years later, it's still been talked about.
Yeah,
that's one of the biggest. When you look at moments in history, that's one of the moments that everybody brings up. Now, when you talk about wrestling being real, fake, whatever else, and people argue the point, you kind of show them one thing, and it's Mankind getting tossed off the Hell in a Cell and saying, "Is that fake?" And then you talk about the Montreal Screwjob.
Yep, definitely. And it also it's kept Bret Hart relevant when really he shouldn't have been. But because we are going to be talking about kind of what ifs at some point later on in the podcast. And my one was, what if the Montreal Screwjob didn't happen? One of the things that I really do think is that he would have just dropped into obscurity, after leaving WCW, because there wouldn't have been as much about him, and because there'd be no Montreal Screwjob to talk about. There'd be no theories, conspiracy theories, documentaries, discussions. You look at all the documentaries about the Montreal Screwjob on YouTube; they're fucking everywhere. Even non-wrestling podcasts and podcasts, just anything in general. It's Montreal Screwjob is folklore now. It's or just a legend. It's there. So if that didn't happen, I think and if that didn't happen, I think Bret would have just went and just would have been being acknowledged as the bitter old man that he has become. Because it wouldn't have been, because it would have just been Goldberg for 20 odd years.
And also, do you not find it weird that for all the kind of family coming out, or members of the family, shall we say, coming out about what happened to Owen, right? Now, seeing any fucking way of the world, okay, people can argue for a time he kind of stood by those thoughts and theories of certain members of the family, but he, in essence, went and worked for the guy that they blamed continuously and rode everything off him.
Oh, yeah.
And in reality, is it that bad?
Yeah, and the only reason that that hatchet got buried was for selfish reasons.
Mm-hmm.
It was the self-destruction of the Ultimate Warrior. They were going to do it to Bret. He didn't want that to happen to him. Well, so that was the sole reason that it happened. So I don't think there even would have been. Do you think there would have been a documentary about Bret Hart if the Montreal Screwjob hadn't happened? I personally think there would have been something, but not as much as it had been.
Probably would have been when you look at the
I don't think it would have been a
family
three-disc.
in history.
Yeah,
No, I think it would have been. He would have been involved because you look at the family members, the history. I think yes, when you look at generations, he would have been involved in a documentary 100%. But would it have been that big surrounding him? I don't think so.
Yeah, but in fairness, like to Bret Hart, like we've all had like our opinions on him, but tonight he did the job for Sean Waltman. He sold him. He helped get him over in defeat. The crowd gave them a standing ovation. Jim Ross and Macho Man Randy Savage, who I completely forgot was on commentary at this time, had declared it one of the best matches that there had been.
Yeah.
And Sean is always full of praise for Bret for putting him over like the way he did, because he didn't need to. He could have squashed him or just went into business for himself like a lot of wrestlers have done.
Yeah.
He could have done that, but he didn't. But in the ring, he was a professional. Personally, I just think he's a door-face git. But he did the job.
Yeah. I mean, like you were saying, X-Pac is totally underrated. I think what they could have done is, at that next pay-per-view, they could have gave him a match against Bret, gave him a month run with the title, see how he does with it. Because he is somebody that should have had at least one title run
100%
with a big title, but didn't get it because he wasn't a Vince guy.
Yeah.
He never fit. He didn't fit the mold.
But Rey Mysterio didn't fit the Vince mold. He got it, and then we could go on about that one. It just shows you, like, at that time, they weren't ready. I personally think that even if he'd won the title, he would have been buried. He would have been buried in a squash. He would have been buried in a squash match by Shawn Michaels or something, because he would have just power played it.
Mm-hmm.
Or they would have just went, okay, we got Diesel in now, right? Just power bomb him, and that's it. Literally, it's like 10 seconds done. But we were talking about how he was big with factions like DX and the NWO. Let's not forget the biggest faction that he was involved with, the Clique. Because he was in the Clique before Hunter even arrived.
Yeah.
Because Hunter wasn't on the scene. It was Hall, Waltman, Michaels, then Diesel came in, and then when Hunter jumped to WWF, he came in. And a lot of people forget that Waltman was part of the original Clique.
Mm-hmm.
Which maybe is slightly to his advantage, because when the Clique get blamed for all the backstage politicking, Waltman's name doesn't get brought up. But do you think he would have maybe, played the game in that sense?
Oh, totally.
Well, so you've already said like he could have had a world title run. I personally think he would have been squashed. What do you think that he could have been a great, long-term intercontinental champion?
Easily. I mean, the title runs that he did have, it was like the light heavyweight championship, European championship, and then they gave him the tag titles with Kane.
That was beautiful. That was
putting him with Kane at that point was just fantastic.
Yeah, definitely.
Especially with Kane with the voice box thing. And then him going out with Tori as well. And then X-Pac steals Tori. And then they go and fight. And then they get back as a tag team. And it's just, this is fantastic. It's brilliant.
It was so ludicrous and so, see if they're trying to do that type of angle in modern day wrestling. Like it wouldn't work at all. But it's like how Eddie Guerrero in China, that was like match made in heaven material for storylines. But if they tried that, like say with They try, well, they're trying to do that technically, aren't they? With Rhea Ripley and Dominic Mysterio, but it's not Eddie Guerrero in China.
That's the thing, though. They know it's not.
Yeah.
And that's the whole point. They're saying they're trying to be these two people. They're trying to be these two legends, but they'll never live up to that.
Mm.
And that's going to be the whole thing round about this. So you're not Eddie Guerrero, you're not China, ain't going to happen.
Yeah, I would say so. But
we can look forward to a stint in the adult movie world.
Yeah.
I really hope it doesn't happen, because she's got talent. She's got a good head on her shoulders at the minute. Well, I hope it doesn't wind up like that. Because I wanted to try and I wanted to carve a better legacy for it. But we'll see. You never know what could happen. I mean, no one thought that Trish Stratus would go from barking like a dog to being a multi-time women's champion, one of the most respected women's wrestlers of all time. So the
shocking thing is that scene is probably my most watched Attitude Era scene.
I can understand that. It has all the traits that you like. Degrading women, making them bark like dogs, basically, essentially like, emotionally breaking someone. It's pretty much, and it's you. Yeah, it's you. So let's give our kind of, our Meltzer stars for Sean Waltman, 1, 2, 3 Kid versus Bret the Hitman Hart. Well, I'll go with Toner because I'm actually to hear what he's got to say. First time you've actually had to stop and think. Whoa! Holy fuck!
Tell you why, because
you're like the Gordon Ramsay of Meltzer reports. Fucking hell, man!
Because yes, it was enjoyable. Yes, it was a long match, but in essence, the outcome you already knew. You knew who was going to win the match. They weren't going to give him the belt and give him the run. They never ever did, as we've spoke about. And I just think that, for me, when you hear, like in Triple H, said a lot about those kind of shock factors and those shock moments, I think that is a massive part to play. And very quickly, if he's one of the things that I always younger used to hate was main event coming up. And I'm just giving you an example here. Don't take this as exact, but Austin The Rock fighting at WrestleMania for the title, but 2 weeks earlier on Raw, or 4 weeks earlier on the main event, he's putting the title on the line against Triple H, and you're thinking, well, this is pointless. This is absolutely pointless because they've done all this build up to that. We know they're not going to swerve it and it's not going to change. So why bother putting the title? I mean, you can have the match. Why bother putting the title on the line? And for me, that used to be a big thing years ago. Yeah, going through the Attitude Era as we all did. Excuse me, it was great. It was brilliant. It's arguably the best stuff that they've ever put out. But at times, a lot of stuff was very predictable.
Yeah, that's true. Right, we'll leave Kev for last this time. Well, I'll jump in. I'm going to go for 3. For the technical masterclass, and what it done for Sean Waltman, in his career. Great match. Couldn't fault it. It did have a twist in it where the match got restarted so it could be finished properly. I think that's something that put it to the 3 stars for me. But the things that I don't like about it is, like you said, you knew the outcome. But I think what would have been worse is also something else that WWE was very prominent of doing, was in that kind of build up to a main event, someone would maybe win the title and then the next week they would instantly drop it. I mean, for example, one of the prime examples was when it was, 9/11. Kurt Angle won the title, to give the America fuck yeah moment, and then next pay-per-view, he drops it to Austin, and it just goes back to status quo. Which I think, okay, that's kind of just like, pay-per-view to pay-per-view, fair dues. But a lot of times I did see things like, in wrestling where there was someone would win the title, and there would be something that's went wrong, or there was some decision that didn't get done, and hereby declare that the match is null and void, and this person is still the champion, so we roll into our next pay-per-view. So in that sense, yeah, I definitely agree that predictable, but I wouldn't have seen any other outcome. I couldn't have really seen any other outcome from it, and that's kind of what does it for me. And also just because I think Bret's a mono-faced git. He did the job in the ring, but just we need to try and stop watching Bret Hart matches for a while. I'm getting oversaturated with him. He's like Thomas the Tank Engine. Right, Kev, your stars. There you
go. Well, I'm going to be a bit more controversial, actually, and I'm going to say 1.5.
Holy fuck, you went worse than Toner.
I know. I mean,
has there been some sort of eclipse and I've not known about it?
Probably. I mean, the match in itself, it done its job. It got Expat 1, 2, 3 Kid over. But there was so much more that they could have done with it. The whole thing about that wasn't really to get him over. It was about Owen Hart coming out and making a scene. That's what that entire bit was for. The 25-minute match afterwards, that was just cannon fodder. Vince wanted Owen Hart to be out there shoving his finger in Bret's face. And then there's a 25-minute match because there's no other matches. I mean, the rest of the matches on the card, you had Crush versus Matt Hardy. You had IRS fighting somebody.
Yeah, because was it a guy from IRS that broke 1, 2, 3 Kids streak?
I think it was, aye.
Yeah.
But it's like there was so much more that they could have done with it. They could have went places with it. If they built that up to be something else, it would have been a better match because it would have the story to follow it. There was no story. It was just, this is your match, and then that's it.
Yeah.
It's like, where did they go for there? Light heavyweight title, European title, tag title. Didn't even put him in the running for the Intercontinental title. Didn't put him in the running for the heavyweight title.
Yeah.
They just buried him for no other reason than Vince didn't like his look.
Yeah.
He was a high flyer, and Vince doesn't like him. It wasn't. I mean, if he'd come in like 5 years later, there's so much more people that he would have fitted in with. But he was just wrong place, wrong time. Even though when he came in, he was doing all these things and he was beating these people. That was the story. They could have had him just fighting Bret, not for the title. And they could have had him beating Bret, build that up, give him a month run with the title, 2-month run with the title. I mean, that's nothing in the history of the title. He would still be there on the list. He might not be one of the greatest champions, but he'll have had that run, he'll have got that recognition. And it sort of slowed his career, I think, rather than push it. Because there was nothing behind it afterwards.
It's very interesting what angle to look at it, man. What I've got to say. See if we can ever get Sean Waltman. I will play this to him and be like, right, what's your thoughts on this? And I will pray that he is like, no longer sober so we could get like the proper like destruction answer. But I'm only kidding.
Just tag him when we put the video up.
Nah, we'll tag him and go, right, Right, Sean, thoughts on this bump? Well, safe to say we have successfully covered another match on Raw is Ginger. Well, I am hoping that we don't cover any more Brett matches for a little while because I am just sick of seeing the pink and black. So until next time, my friends, I've been Andrew Durnan. We've had Kevin Tierney. We've had John Toner. This has been Raw is Ginger. Good night.
Yep.
Cheers.